Try to imagine something that has never been thought of before. If you have a book in your hands, it could be an individual's book, a large print illustrated book, or indeed a book of any kind. But in a world where the concept of a book doesn't even exist, try to imagine how a book can be conceived or attempt to dream on a day without time. More precisely, on a day where time is not divided into regular segments. In our present day, people seem to live within the confines of time, waking up at a certain hour, going to work or school at another, eating at specific times, and sleeping at designated hours. Our lives seem to take shape according to the speed of the clock. However, once upon a time, people did not live this way. Time was not yet a coined word for them. Both time and writing, along with many other things present in our daily lives, were invented by the Sumerians in ancient Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago. Before that, a day began with the sunrise and ended with the sunset. What the Sumerians invented wasn't limited to just writing and time. 360-degree circle geometry, wheeled vehicles, children's toys, taxes, advanced irrigation techniques, dentistry, architecture, and many developments in urban and agricultural areas were just part of what the Sumerians introduced into our lives. What makes all of this even more interesting is a remarkable historical fact about the Sumerians. Until just a century ago, we knew nothing about the existence of the Sumerians in ancient times. Approximately 100 years ago, archaeologists who began excavating in Mesopotamia were actually looking for the Assyrians and Babylonians, not the Sumerians. They had considerable information about these peoples and civilizations from Greek and Hebrew sources, but they had no clue about the Sumerians. The name Sumer had been erased from human minds and memories for over 2,000 years. Nevertheless, today, the Sumerians are one of the most recognized civilizations of ancient times. We know how they looked, how they lived, and what they believed in, thanks to their statues scattered in museums worldwide and archaeological studies conducted in the region. Moreover, from tens of thousands of Sumerian tablets containing commercial, legal, and administrative documents, we gain insights into their laws. Now, armed with this data, we can start saying something about Sumerian history. According to most historians, the Sumerians were a people of Western Asian origin who permanently settled in the region between 5500 and 4000 BCE. Sumerian language expert Samuel Noah Kramer writes in his book, History Begins at Sumer, that Sumerian history began with a village culture, a mix of Iranian immigrants and Semites. The merging of these two peoples and cultures eventually led to the formation of the first city-states in southern Mesopotamia. We see periods of intense struggles among these city-states to dominate the region. Often, the Semites emerged victorious in these struggles, and the Mesopotamians began expanding to other regions, establishing one of the first great empires in the Near East. This empire eventually spread from the region known as Elam to the plains of western Iran. This Mesopotamian empire encountered primitive and nomadic Sumerians who were estimated to have come from the Caspian Sea or the Caucasus. Acting as a buffer against the Mesopotamians and resisting at all costs, the Sumerians initially couldn't establish superiority against the more technologically and culturally advanced Mesopotamians. However, as Sumerians became familiar with Mesopotamian culture through captivity or as mercenaries, they learned the necessary military technology and applied it to their own culture. Overcoming the declining Mesopotamian state over time, the Sumerians first took control of western Iranian territories and then conquered northern Mesopotamia, establishing the first Sumerian state in this region. We know that the Sumerians had at least 12 city-states in the region between 3300 to 3000 BCE. During this period, cities were generally surrounded by walls. Each city had its own god, and there was at least one temple in each city. Now that we've outlined how the Sumerians came onto the world stage, we can take a look at what they changed in world history. First and foremost, we need to talk about the Sumerians' belief structure, as the origins of religious beliefs reach back to them. Before the construction of cities, the Sumerians began building large temples. During this period, the person in power was the head priest responsible for these temples, and it was believed that they communicated directly with the gods. In other words, priests represented the connection between gods and society. However, about 1,000 years after the emergence of the first temples, this tradition began to change. Power started shifting from the priests in the temples to the kings living in palaces. Kings likely emerged as military leaders and wealthy landowners. They gradually took over the spiritual duties that priests had performed and thus obtained a semi-spiritual role at the pinnacle of Sumerian society. In this way, the world's first kings emerged in world history. So, how do we know all this? The most crucial aspect concerning the Sumerians is that they left behind written tablets that enabled us to learn about these things. Writing was indeed one of the most significant inventions in world history. Today, only artificial intelligence studies or space research can be compared to the invention of writing. This is because through writing, humanity taught itself to pass on knowledge and experience to future generations. Additionally, writing made certain tasks much easier. Its initial appearance was related to keeping commercial records. A portion of Sumerian tablets is filled with information about who used what in barter, how many sheep someone gave, and how many cows they received, and similar details. Moreover, Sumerian clay tablets hold a significant place in government financial records. In ancient Sumer, paper had not yet been invented. Therefore, people had to find other ways to document information. The material of choice for the Sumerians was clay. The writing process was done while the clay was slightly moist, using a stiff reed made from papyrus. Once the clay dried, a durable record that could last a long time emerged. However, translating these tablets left behind by the Sumerians is challenging for modern archaeologists. This is because Sumerian writing consists of more than 700 different symbols, and the meanings and shapes of these symbols vary between different cities and regions. Additionally, it is essential to know when the writing was produced, as the meanings of symbols changed in various ways over hundreds of years. The invention of writing led to significant changes in social life. Writing was not a task that everyone could do, leading to the emergence of written social class distinctions. The division between those who could write and those who could not persisted from the time of the Sumerians throughout various eras. For example, being able to write and read, both in the East and the West during the Middle Ages, was one of the qualifications necessary for people to serve in the palace. At this point, we need to pause and evaluate why so many things emerged during the Sumerian era. To bring something into existence or make it happen in history, certain conditions before that need to be fulfilled. In this period, these conditions were related to agricultural developments and the establishment of the first cities. For instance, the development of mathematics and geometry in Mesopotamia and Egypt was closely related to calculating river floods and maintaining agricultural activities. The new cities established in fertile regions allowed for the creation of new roads and trade networks. The development of trade brought about the idea that the state benefiting from it should also have a financial share. Thus, the Sumerians invented something new: taxes. So, what was needed to keep tax records? Of course, writing, because recording the given and received goods, storing financial records became a necessity, and this could only be achieved through writing. This is how civilization was gradually built, step by step, by the Sumerians. Civilization, in essence, was a sum of things people needed. With their inventions, the Sumerians laid the foundation for so many things used in people's daily lives that it is impossible to imagine a world today without them. In other words, it would not be an exaggeration to say that the Sumerians, who lived thousands of years ago, constructed the world we live in today.